Hi there, welcome to the Foundry at SIGGRAPH 2016. My name is Tom Rockhill. I'm joined here by the Foundry CTO, Jon Wadelton. Jon, good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
So it's the last day of the show. There's a few weary faces around. There's been a few parties. Jon, first question, most important. What's been your favourite party of the SIGGRAPH so far?
It's got to be the shotgun party. That was just clearly the winner by quite a high margin, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. Go-karting and lots of people talking about software. Absolutely, very much my favourite party.
Love software.
So we're at SIGGRAPH. We've been here for a couple of days. What's been the most interesting thing that you've seen over the last couple of days?
Well, you know what? I tend to go to a lot of meetings and not get to see a lot of things, but I tell you what's been really interesting is the whole open source movement. I'm really excited about it. Pixar open source event was really cool. They're released USD to the world. For people who don't know what USD is, it's Universal Scene Description. It's like a way of describing 3D data and aggregating scenes of 3D data. And the whole industry is kind of needs this, right? A lot of companies have to build their own version of this, and now Pixar's open sourced it. They used it on their last movie, so it's like fully, they've used it for years, but this code was actually used on their last movie, so it's like production proven, and now it's out there for people to start contributing to. So it's very exciting.
Okay, that's interesting, and I guess the Foundry is a software vendor. How do all of these new open standards and things like the VFX Platform affect how software vendors go about making software and developing software?
Well, I think the great thing about something like USD is that it's this open format for describing scenes, and it's a pipeline that's now available to everyone. So it's back to that whole thing about before you had to have these things as proprietary internal formats, and that means all of the studios have to write that proprietary format into the vendor software, so they have to integrate into Maya, integrate it into Katana and Nuke, etc. And now with this open source movement, the vendors were going to do it for their behalf of the studios, so it's more open, and that's going to be great. Like not just internally, because the companies can have this pipeline and spend their time doing their special source rather than writing file formats. It's also good for sharing out to external contractors and stuff, because you've got this open format now, so if you want to go out and take some of your pipeline out to a third party, you don't have that proprietary format anymore, so it's easier to share.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of collaboration at the moment, and our industry, visual effects industry, I guess, can be quite volatile and changes very, very quickly. Like you've had a lot of meetings with some of the big studios this week. What's the general shift and trends of the studios at the moment?
Yeah, definitely. Trend for openness is definitely up there, but also there's definitely a trend for cloud. Like cloud, every year people are talking about cloud, right? But this year there was about 4 or 5 different birds of a feather that were just all cloud, right? Different sort of versions of cloud. So I think that's really starting to take off, and something that studios are not just sort of dabbling with anymore. They're like really seriously considering moving their infrastructure to the cloud and taking advantage of burst rendering and stuff like that.
Yeah, so cloud's quite it's very much a hot topic. It's very also much a broad sweeping term. Which bits of production are actually going in the cloud first, and how do you see that moving?
Well, I think it's definitely a burst thing right now. That seems to be the big advantage of the cloud in the short term for these studios. So you've got your render farm capacity in the basement, and you can't go over that. So if you can move some of that infrastructure out to the cloud, then you can have this burst rendering, get to your deadline faster, or bid on work that maybe you couldn't have done because you don't have the physical infrastructure in the basement. So I definitely think that's the first step, but people are really starting to think about also going all the way, right? Let's not just do the rendering in the cloud, let's start moving the desktops to the cloud and start streaming, the results back. And you can get really good results with this, even with public cloud, If you've got good 10 millisecond kind of latency to public cloud, then desktop feels like it's local, So I think that's kind of the next step, but it's slow going. We'll get there. Security is a big concern, obviously, but I think as an industry we're starting to get comfortable with security with the cloud as well.
Yeah, there definitely seems to be a shift. I know you've got your crystal ball with you at the moment. Do you see at some stage production and storage and rendering and computing and everything being 100% in the cloud, or will there always be a requirement for studios to have stuff locally in-house?
Well, I think You know what? I think eventually everything's going to move to the cloud. Like we see it in other industries, right? In fact, I think visual effects is a little bit further behind than other industries. Like a lot of other industries have already gone the whole way. So I feel like eventually it's all going to move there, but still, when the prices start to come, more on par with what it would be to have your own render farm, which is going to happen, I think. But in the next few years, everybody's invested in their hardware. You take your artist workstations at the top of the line, and they move to the basement when they start to, get a bit older. So those machines are still going to be around for a while. So, local on-prem rendering is still here to stay at least for the next 5 years, I would have thought.
So we're wrapping up SIGGRAPH 2016. What do you see as some of the big trends for SIGGRAPH 2017, John?
Well, as everybody's probably aware when they've been walking around the show, there's VR everywhere. So that's just definitely going to continue. But what I think really is going to happen is you're going to see a lot of merging of these pipelines, right? People are still going to be making big visual effects films, but there's always going to be an offshoot of high-end VR on the side. So I think you're going to be seeing a lot of demos where people have made that visual effects film and also reused the assets, or had a pipeline for also doing VR on the side as well.
Very interesting. John, thanks for joining us. Thanks everyone for joining us. See you next year.